Hi, I'm Ben Neal. Welcome to the Diffusing Music podcast, where I explore the democratization of music through technology with a series of innovative guests. Today, I'm really excited to be talking with Max Maximilianos, the founder of Audiomodern. It's a company that makes a fascinating line of products and software tools, which I've been just very delighted to be using myself over the last few months. Max, it's really great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining me and being willing to talk about what you're doing.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Audiomodern offers around 10 plugins for music production. Playbeat is the one that I'm most familiar with. It's a drum machine that uses AI to improvise variations on patterns that you input. You can also have it improvise new sound combinations. Then, using artificial intelligence, you can say which variations you like to create a personalized, organic, highly streamlined way of making drum beats. It's fun to use, saves a ton of time, and I totally recommend everyone check it out. Can we just start out with a kind of general question in terms of the theme of the book, which I know you're familiar with, which is, how is Audiomodern opening up the possibilities for musical creation to broader audiences that wouldn't normally be able to participate in the creativity aspects of music?
Yeah, so we come from a composer's background. Everyone in our small team comes from a composer's background mostly, and we focus on the compositional aspect of plugins, whether it's creating rhythms or making algorithms which create chords or patterns in general, or loops or even melodies in some cases. So we've been focused mostly on this rather than DSP technology and effects. So we try to have plugins that help you spit out some new ideas during the compositional time that you spend in front of your computer. And with new versions, we adapt to new technologies. We try to build some of our own algorithms that we keep refining as new updates come up. And mostly we try to make software that brings out new ideas that maybe you didn't think about doing yourselves. And from there, you can build on what the machine generates for you. You can customize based on your needs.
Fascinating. A lot of interesting ideas there already. That's interesting to me that you and your team are coming at this from a creator composition kind of approach. Can you just talk a little bit about your own personal trajectory and creative work and how that interfaces with what you're doing with the company?
Yeah, so more than 10 years ago, I started composing music for a French company which is called Ultima Records, and it's based in Lyon, France. So there I also had the opportunity to meet some people that are involved in these companies. So many great composers that are building at the time and still building a unique blend between electronic and ambient compositions. I had the opportunity to attend to some events and even perform on some events alongside them, and it was a great educational route for me between some of those people, where we discussed music history, but also some music tech composition techniques here and there. So with my own will to build some tools that I was working at the time, I started building some Max for Live devices more than 10 years ago that could randomly generate some melodic patterns. So at that time, Katerina joined the team, who has a strong background of computer science and writes a lot of code. So we said, why not trying to make some tools that could generate riffs at a time for electronic and ambient generator, like a riff generator at the time. So we started fiddling around with code and algorithms to tweak the app as good as possible and move to the Max for Live concept to the VST and audio unit module interface. So, I had the opportunity to go back and forth to the people that were involved in these companies back then, like mentors, if you want to call it that way, like teachers for me at least. So we could discuss potentially some details. Okay, so this works great, but it has to be refined here because in live scenarios we could do this, maybe some ideas. And when the product goes public and is available to the market, you have a lot of feedback as well. So there is a lot of feedback coming from users, and we started to write down a lot of good requests and also combine the requests together because, if a user is asking for a concept A and another user a concept B, but you say, well, concept A and concept D, if combined, we might have concept C, which adds a lot of value. So from that time, 10 years ago, there was a straight line of, refining and redevelopment and starting from scratch a lot of times, but refining algorithms to make at least something that we are proud for it, and we think it adds value on your work when you sit down and try to compose a piece.
Fascinating. One of the things you mentioned just a second ago about how the software enables the user to come up with things that they didn't necessarily think of. To me, that's always been the most satisfying aspect, in a way, of doing electronic music, working with different technologies is, and some of that, for me, it has a kind of rooting in some of the older avant-garde ideas of people like John Cage, of getting away from just using the computer or the software, these different instruments as a kind of tape recorder, and really using it instead as a creative partner. And I think your tools that you've developed are doing that in such a great way. And it's interesting in doing a series of these interviews, what I'm finding, which has, again, been a kind of interesting discovery for me, is that people like yourself who are developing these new tools, so far in my talks with them, they do all come from this kind of a background where it's a combination of being a composer and then with working with technologists. And I really see that model, and I talk about that in the end of the book, as being kind of a model for the artist of the future, which is someone who isn't just thinking about creating their genius masterpiece that people are going to sit back and passively listen to, but actually creates something that shapes and influences the creativity of all of these people that are now participating in music. I think what you're doing it just exemplifies that so well. Also interesting, I guess, another angle that you could say on the whole democratization idea is what you just talked about, that you're relying a lot on feedback that you get from people that are using the software and getting ideas for improving it. I think the improvisatory elements of it and the tool that I'm most familiar with, which I'm just really totally enamored with, is Playbeat, which is, for listeners who aren't familiar with it, well, maybe I should let you describe it. Mm-hmm. Because, I think, so much electronic music, drum programming is obviously such a huge part of it. It's really the backbone of it. And the possibilities that Playbeat offers, I think, are very unique and very rewarding. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about that one specifically.
Okay, for sure. So Playbeat is a drum sequencer plugin where in version 1, right now we are in version 4. So in version 1, we made a module that you could simply randomize the sequencer tracks. Well, it was good and interesting, but it was a little bit chaotic. So we had to refine a lot the algorithm that would generate patterns back then. During the various stages, we decided to use multiple algorithms there that you could generate based on a specific style. So we have like 50 musical styles there, so you could pick your desired style, and the complexity value, you have a slider that you choose how complex your pattern that you are about to generate will be. And when you click a button to bring out a new pattern, the plugin will bring a new pattern with new sounds based on the genre and complexity that you have selected. You can also generate only a pattern or only a new set of sounds, or all of them together, like a fresh pattern with sounds. Again, based on the selected style. So in version 3, we had a user on the forum who had a great idea. How about, okay, you have some styles that I can pick from, but how about my own style? Yeah, so we thought about that, and how about we make a new algorithm that we named Smart. So how about you could mark your own presets as Smart with a button, similar as you would click some presets to mark as favorite. So you could mark them as Smart, and now you can engage a smart mode where each new generation will take heavily into account the patterns that you have marked as smart. So it's your own personal style, and it will take into account the patterns that you have saved and marked as smart, but also your sound. So now, besides genres or styles, you have your own smart button, your own personal style that the plugin will start to mimic from now on. And the more presets that you have marked as smart, now the app will start engaging more and more with your specific, how you react to the application. So the good thing with Playbeat is that it will perform a little different on each user. It will not be the same plugin if you use it on your projects every day or regularly. If I use it, it will bring out much different results. So here we start flirting with the personalization even more with this new version. So you start to personalize Playbeat even more. So, and this is done with a combination of, it must be around 5 or 6 different algorithms that at every given point, the 3 of them are working.
Fascinating. You didn't mention AI, but I guess this is a kind of implementation of AI in a sense, right, to make this happen. And in some of my talks and presentations that I've given, and just in the book, I talk about how I think this is such a great example of how artificial intelligence, counter to what I think is a sort of general popular opinion of kind of fearfulness of artificial intelligence. And of course, that was one of my whole incentives for writing the book, was because I see there's so much fear around these new technologies. And I talk about how that's been the case for 100 years in music, that every new technology, whether it was recordings or radio or drum machines or sampling, there's always that element. But I feel that just what you described with this smart approach, it actually is, to me, it's the opposite of dehumanization. It, as you just described, it's personalization, and it's much more interesting and creative and engenders personal creativity than the situation of everybody just using the same basic stock loops that come with Ableton or Logic or something. And I often refer to it because I think it's just such a great example of that. Of course, it's a very different approach from something like Udio, where you just type in a text prompt and you get back a whole song. But I think for people that are more into a professional level of production, and again, I can say this for myself, I just think it's a fantastic tool, and I keep discovering something new with it all the time. And again, that's what we want. I mean, there was one program, I was wondering if you were ever familiar with the chaos mode in Stylus RMX. That's a Spectrasonics plugin that I used for years. And it had this thing called chaos mode where you were able to it used Rex files, and you were able to do something kind of similar to what you do in Playbeat, but not nearly as subtle. I mean, the way that you can vary all of these different aspects of the sounds, the pitch, the dynamics, all that, it's really very exciting to work with. I'm curious, have you implemented that kind of smart approach in some of the other plugins? I'm just not as familiar with. I have looked at Riffer some, but is that something that you use in some of your other products as well?
No, but in the upcoming version of Reefer 4 that we are currently building, it will be present. It will have the same concept. So yeah, about the AI, I understand that there is some fear involved, as you said previously. I think it's just a tool that helps you create new stuff, but most importantly, you have pointed out very well that it's very nice technology concept to add some more personalization rather than randomness. And this is basically what our humans are doing during composition. Make choices, select choices during the composition that is personal favorite. And that's why you're choosing this bass sound instead of the other one, or this chord instead of the other one. So here we may have AI at least trying to help us with our own artistic approach and artistic view.
And going back to your first answer, to give us something that surprises us on some level, but that is informed by our own preferences and taste. I mean, that's just, it's fantastic. And again, I see that as being so exemplary of many of the ideas that I talk about in the book. Or were there any other artists or influences that you had specifically, maybe that you would want to mention that led you to these ideas? And I'm also curious if there are any particular implementations of the software that you've been particularly proud of, or ways in which it's been used that listeners might be compelled to investigate.
Well, I don't think I can mention specific names around this. It's just the work we do is just influenced by our own studies and everyday work. Some stuff, there are days that you could work on a lot of stuff, but there's not something specific that you want to keep. But there are days that we found something here, let's go this way and try to work around this flow. At the time, some users may have reached us out with some idea that it helps us with the direction that we're going at that given time. So we keep working this way. So, and yeah, we have a lot of users that we admire, that I know they are using our tools. I don't have any quotes or anything, but I've been in contact with many people that I admire, and I'm very happy. We're very happy. This is, most of the reward is people that we admire, that we know that, hey guys, I have this and very nice job here, or even if hey, I got the bug there, even this, it's very good for us.
How many people are you working with on your team generally?
Four. Me, Katerina, Vladislav, and it's Mario and Gustavo.
And where are you based primarily? Are you all based in the same place?
Me and Katerina are based in Athens, Greece at the moment, and Gustavo and Vladislav are based in Spain.
Okay, great. I love Greece. I was there a couple of years ago.
Okay, next time you're invited. Please let me.
Oh, okay, great. Well, extra incentive.
Yeah.
to come back. Not that I need much. So yeah, well, what's on the horizon then? What are your kind of future plans? You've talked a little bit about that, but anything upcoming or that you'd like to mention as far as, what you're planning in ahead?
Yeah, so we have our refer version 4 coming up in a few months. We're refining some details. There will be, of course, some regular updates on all of the apps. We had a few people asking, and this is Playbeat specific, but could be a different project. We had a few people asking that we could refine again the engine, the audio engine for Playbeat, that the way it generates new patterns or alterate existing patterns, like variation of patterns, it could do variations of the audio file that you feed it to. So you feed the engine of an audio sample and you could do variation, for example, make 6 variations of this specific audio file that I have imported and to choose from. So now we're talking about, this involves more DSP than other works, but also audio layering or manipulation could be an interesting project as an addition or even as a new application. So we started looking our ways to how we could do something in a meaningful way.
You have a loop plugin. Does it do something similar to that? I actually haven't used it. I've watched a couple of the demos on it. But
So Loopmix is a polyphonic gate sequencer that you could feed it up to 6 audio loops. It will slice them up automatically, and it will use slices of different loops on the different tracks to compose a new loop again without leaving the grid or something like this. So no, it's not. I'm talking for waveform.
right. Gotcha. Yeah. All right, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Again, it's a real delight for me to get to talk to you because I've just been enjoying working with your tools so much, and look forward to seeing more and continuing to develop my own work. And I hope others will use this opportunity to check out what you're doing if they haven't. Thanks again, Max.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.